So on March 20th, 2026, Anthropic shipped Claude Code Channels. And it's pretty clear this was a direct response to OpenClaw, the open source AI agent that became one of the most starred projects on all of GitHub in under 4 days. 250,000 stars and counting, built by a single developer out of Austria. Anthropic saw how popular OpenClaw became and wanted to release their own version. But here's the interesting thing. They didn't just copy it, they built something fundamentally different. And that matters because the biggest players in AI are quietly telling you what they think the future of work will look like. They're not saying it in blog posts, they're not saying it in keynotes, they're saying it through the tools they ship. And if you look closely at what Anthropic just released versus what the open source community is building, you'll see two completely different visions of how humans and AI will work together. One side is saying AI should be your copilot. You stay in control, you direct the work, AI executes within your guardrails. The other side is saying AI should be your autonomous coworker. You give it a job, you walk away, and it handles things all on its own. And listen, both of these features are happening right now at the same time. And understanding the difference is going to help you figure out which tools actually make sense for how you work. Today, I'm breaking down both of them and what they tell us about where this is all heading. Let's get into it. Right. So here is our game plan today. We are going to cover 5 things. What Claude Code Channels actually is and how it works. Second, a quick recap of OpenClaw for anyone who hasn't been following along. Third, and this is the most important part, the philosophical difference between these two tools. Fourth, the architecture, like what's actually happening under the hood. And fifth, who should use which tool. Let's get into it. Now, if you don't know me, I'm Sunny. I'm a serial founder now on my 4th startup. I'm a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, where I teach tech. Listen, I have been in this industry for more than 15 years, well before AI, and I have made all the mistakes so you don't have to. My goal for today's videos, and really all my videos, is to help us all make sense of all of the AI innovation that is happening and really get a good handle on the tools that we currently have at our disposal. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with what Claude Code Channels is. It launched March 20th, 2026 as a research preview inside Claude Code, and it's surprisingly pretty simple. So right now, if you're running a Claude Code session, you have to be sitting at your computer. Let's say you're in the middle of a session and Claude Code's doing the work, but you have to go to a meeting, go to lunch, whatever. The problem is that your session kind of just stops, right? Like you can't continue the session because you're not at your desk. Well, Channels solves that problem. So Channels is simply an MCP server. And if you don't know what MCP is, it's simply a universal standard for connecting AI to external tools and data sources. And what Channels does is it allows you to message your running Claude Code session from your phone. This could be through Telegram or Discord or any other messaging app that they support. So you send a message, it gets pushed into your active Claude Code session. Claude sees it, does the work against your local files and environment, and sends the results back to your phone. Now, here's the key thing. This is not some cloud agent running off in the distance doing its own thing. This is a direct bridge between your phone and the Claude Code session that is actually running on your machine. If there's no session running, then Channels will not work. It's tightly coupled in that way by design. And the security model here is pretty thoughtful. There's an allow list, so only phone numbers or user IDs that you explicitly approve can push messages into your session, and you can control it with a flag. So you can spin it on or off per session. And for enterprise users, it's off by default, and admins get to essentially control it through managed settings. Before we continue, this is actually a great time to talk about something that I have been thinking about. It's funny, every time a new category of AI tool shows up, The first thing everyone focuses on is what it can do. But the thing that actually matters, the thing that separates the tools that last from the ones that flame out, is what it doesn't let you do. The constraints themselves can be a product. And I think Channels is a real clear example of that, because Anthropic could have shipped something fully wide open, but they didn't. They shipped something gated. And in my view, that tells you a lot about where enterprise AI tooling is heading, towards less autonomy by default, not more. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is OpenClaw. I've covered OpenClaw extensively in some of my other videos, but here is a quick recap. So OpenClaw is an open source, self-hosted AI agent. It was started as a side project by a developer named Peter Steinberger, who actually previously founded PSPDF Kit, which was one of the most successful PDF frameworks in the Apple ecosystem. He built what was originally called Claude Bot in late 2025. Anthropic actually sent a trademark complaint because the name was, of course, too close to Claude. So then it became Maltbot for like 3 days, and then finally OpenClaw. And listen, the growth has been absolutely wild. It went from 0 to 60,000 GitHub stars in 72 hours, hit 100,000 by February, and as of right now, it's sitting at over 250,000 stars at the time of this recording. So under the hood, it has 3 layers working together. So first, there is the messaging layer, and that's all the apps that you can talk to it through. Apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, and there's a couple of others as well. Those messages then get routed to the gateway. Think of that layer like a receptionist. It sits in the middle, takes in everything, and figures out where to send it. And then there's the AI layer, which is the actual brain, the model that reads your message and truly decides what to do. The key thing here, though, is that it is self-hosted. You bring your own LLM, Claude, GPT, Gemini, local models, whatever you want. Your data stays on your infrastructure, and it's designed to be always on. You deploy it once and it runs 24/7 on your machine or a server. You text at 2 a.m., it responds. No interactive session needed. But before we continue, I just want to call something out here because I think it's worth noting. A solo developer built this as a side project in his spare time, got over 250,000 GitHub stars and counting, and more importantly, forced one of the biggest AI companies in the world to respond. Anthropic literally shipped Channels weeks after OpenClaw went viral. That is the speed in which we are operating right now. One person with a good idea and an internet connection can create enough pressure to change the roadmap of $1 billion company. If you're building anything right now in 2026, that should both be inspiring and terrifying, but hopefully more inspiring. All right, let's keep moving. All right, so I want to zoom out for a second here. These 2 tools, OpenClaw and Claude Code Channels, are not necessarily competing. They represent 2 completely different philosophies about what AI agents should look like. So OpenClaw's whole premise is maximum autonomy. Let you decide what the agent can or cannot do. Connect it to your email, your calendar, your file system, your browser. Build custom skills and plugins. The whole framework defaults to yes. Maximum power, maximum flexibility. Now, Channels takes the opposite approach, deliberately constrained, but with the safety guarantees you actually need when AI is touching your local system. Everything is gated, allow lists, flags you have to explicitly set, enterprise controls. Anthropic's whole philosophy comes through guardrails first, then autonomy. And listen, they're both right. They're just right for different people and different contexts. Saying one kills the other is like saying a Swiss Army knife kills a chef's knife. They're different tools for different jobs. All right, let's get more specific and actually get under the hood, because this is where it gets really interesting. So Channels is you plus Claude. It's your local Claude Code session, which is the engine, and your phone is just a remote control. When you send a message from Telegram or Slack or wherever, it comes into an already running session. And that session already has the necessary context. It knows your file system that you've granted access to, your environment, whatever you have been already working on. Claude acts on that existing context. You're not changing the agent, you're just kind of extending how you interact with it. Now, OpenClaw is completely independent deployment. You install it, you run the onboarding wizard, and it starts a persistent gateway process that is always on. It has its own runtime, its own memory, its own life cycle, and it is not attached to anything you're actively doing in a terminal. It's just running a separate entity on your infrastructure, making decisions based on what you've configured it to do. That difference changes everything. Channels works with Claude models only, of course, that's by design. It's shipping from Anthropic, built into Claude Code. OpenClaw, on the other hand, is model agnostic. You can run it with Claude, GPT, Gemini, DeepSeek. You can even run local models. So it's the same architecture, but just different brains, right? But here's the big one. Channels requires a running session. If your Claude Code session closes, Channels stops. Messages sent while it's down are just essentially gone. OpenClaw, on the other hand, once it's deployed, the gateway is intended to never sleep. It's supposed to be asynchronous and independent. That brings me to another bigger point. I think we're past the era of which AI model is the best. That conversation is kind of over. The models are essentially converging. What's actually diverging, and pretty fast, is the interaction model. Synchronous versus asynchronous, controlled versus autonomous, session-based versus always on. And I think 2 years from now, the companies that win won't be the ones with the best models per se. They'll be the ones that nailed the right interaction pattern for how people actually work. And that is really what this Channels versus OpenClaw debate is really about underneath. It's not about the features, it's about workflows. Let's make this a bit more practical and actually determine what tools are right for which people. So if you're a developer already using Claude Code and you just want to be a bit more productive while you're away from your desk, then definitely just go with Channels here. It will allow you to extend a workflow you already have. You can message Claude from your phone. It executes against your local system. You get back results. There's an allow list to ensure that only you or people you explicitly trust can interact with it. So to me, that's very low risk, high convenience factor right there. Now, if you're building infrastructure and you need a system that runs 24/7, coordinates across multiple services, handles incoming messages from different platforms autonomously, that is really OpenClaw. That's what it's built for. You're not extending an interactive workflow, but you're deploying an autonomous agent. Now, if you are an enterprise where security and control are tremendously important, then you want to go for Channels. Admins can turn it off globally. It doesn't have to change your existing Claude Code workflow. It just adds a remote interface. Now, if on the other side, if you're a builder or a startup founder who wants to move super fast, connect everything together, and doesn't mind getting your hands dirty with configuration, then maybe OpenClaw is probably your speed. And honestly, there's nothing stopping you from using both. I've actually been doing exactly that. Channels for when I want to stay in the loop on active work, OpenClaw for the autonomous stuff that runs in the background. Different tools, different jobs. All right, we are at the end of our video. Before I sign off, here is your homework. If you've been curious about AI agents, but you didn't know where to start, then I would say start with Claude Code plus Channels first. It's lower risk, it's super easy to get started, and you should actually spend a week messaging Claude from your phone and try to control those Claude Code sessions remotely. I think it'll go a long way in developing a deeper understanding for how these systems work. I think that's a good starting point. And then if you're feeling ambitious, you can venture into OpenClaw. But the bigger takeaway here is that what we are seeing is two completely different philosophies about AI agents, and we're seeing this play out in real time. And there is this competition between these bigger philosophies. And in my view, that's a good thing for us all, because ultimately we all work different and therefore will require different tools and different dynamics around that tooling. Now, if you stuck around till the end of this video, I appreciate you. I will see you on the next one.